Hello, in this series I give you an overview of what's been happening in the photography and fine art industry recently. And today we're going to take a look at some fashion photography work and also at some galleries. Okay, let's begin. So first campaign we are going to look at is for Chopova Lowena 2020 spring and summer, I'm guessing, campaign, and it was shot by Charlotte Wales. What caught my eye here is the really cool styling. Basically, the compositions are very simple here. The whole story is quite simple in this particular image, but it's so the elements of the styling are so thought through in details, and I know how hard it is to actually combine such elements that are so different from each other. Like, look at this pants that are actually consisting of several pieces that have completely different textures, and look at this blouse that such a big shape, and look at the sleeves and this very light fabric, and then the details on it are just so interesting and so unusual. And then the hair too, and it's such a fine line to not go overboard with the styling elements when you already have such a intense elements in the clothes, so many different textures and patterns. And then when you start doing your hair, like where is it when you stop, right? Where is that fine line where it's still looking in balance and in support of each other, and where it becomes too much, right? I think that's this image. The reason that it's caught my eye is because of this, that balance still being there, and really exquisite styling without it looking too much. And I think it really works here with also quite classic, simple lighting, um, big soft light, and neutral background, and everything actually turning black and white, I think works. I don't know how it looked in color, but I'm sure the black and white helped to actually focus on shapes rather than colors. Maybe they were conflicting with each other. So let's take a look at the next image from the same campaign, which I find also quite interesting and quite unusual. So you can see this backdrop, which is obviously not a real mountain outdoor shot, but the combination of this quite intense backdrop, interesting light coming from the back. Actually, she's backlit, and there's another light, obviously a key light from the front. So this edge light gives her a little bit of a separation from the background, although the dress is so light and textured and lacy that resembles this texture in the mountains, and kind of on a borderline of being lost and blurred to merge with the background. But actually it works, and I think what's cool about this image is this really daring approach. Okay, let's break all the rules. She's falling down, there's mountains in the back, and it's a fake backdrop, and the light is quite hard from the back, and then a soft light from the front, and her like facial expressions and body language is so dynamic, and it's so fun. And I really like when photographers and creative teams dare to try something new rather than sticking to something that they know works really well. Let's take a look at the next shot from the same campaign. Also this falling down image with a different backdrop, and I like again the combination and the connection of the color palette in the background and the color palette in the clothing. Also pretty wild. I don't know, somehow it resembles or reminds me of Pippi Longstocking, and this whole like rebellious kind of attitude and having fun, and living your life as you want it. And I think it reflects the whole message of the brand, or at least I'm not familiar with the brand, but it gives me the idea of the spirit that brands wants to translate. Okay, next campaign we are going to look at is Ralph Lauren campaign Spring Summer Collection 2020, and shot by Lachlan Bailey. What is interesting about this one, it is also a combination of artificial backdrop and the model, but in a completely different way than the campaign we just looked at. We saw, in this example, we saw these backdrops that were physically there, versus here, my guess is these backdrops were created separately and the model is just composited onto it. I might be wrong, but this is what it feels like to me, or maybe that's the idea that they wanted to. Basically, what they're referring to is the old movie posters or old traveling posters. Travel to all these fascinating destinations, and it's very nostalgic. And I think for the spring summer collection, they wanted to bring out the spirit of nostalgia. And you always think of summers when you take a vacation and you travel to all these exotic destinations. And so yeah, using the font is like is in the movie posters, for example, and then you using all these elements of those locations where you would go to this summer. And then there's also a picture of Ralph Lauren in every shot, somehow like implemented. And you have different colors, different painterly elements combined with also photographic elements. I think it's quite interesting, and it might seem maybe slightly overwhelming for some, but I think for most of us it's gonna definitely bring out those nostalgic feelings, and especially for people looking for new ways of expression, but at the same time finding your inspiration in something that's actually used to be a part of our culture, this romanticism related to traveling, and kind of bringing it back again. It seems fresh, actually. And another campaign that we are going to look at today is Paul Smith, also Spring Summer 2020, shot by Theo Sion. And I also chose this in this collection for today because of this post-production treatment. Like the other ones before, we looked at unusual backdrops, composited elements, painterly and photographically collaged together. And then this one, it also has some post-production treatment and this color toning that also brings this nostalgic feeling, to me at least. When you had black and white images and then they were hand painted or tinted on top of the black and white. So this one has this really nice dusty pink kind of color hue over it, and I just like the combination of the model's expression, how they are. I don't know, in this particular one they seem very intimate this moment. They're not posing for the camera. They really feel real to me, even though we all know that it's highly styled, and what they're wearing, it's all thought through in details and what's in the background, but it still seems like a very natural kind of shot, that moment that they were captured in. It doesn't look too stylized or too set up, and I really like this nostalgic treatment and the really nice and soft light on them. That's the shot from the same campaign. Interesting also, a photographic backdrop, as you notice partially over here, some lion, I think it is, and also showing here, and just in combination with a close-up, again this really soft light, sort of retro hair, and this overall retro feel. Maybe that's a trend, kind of looking back at campaigns of the past and trying to, evoke those nostalgic feelings in the customer. But anyway, I really like this image and I hope it was inspiring. So now on to fine art news. Today I wanted to introduce you guys to this amazing gallery called Varaksina. It is based in Sweden, and Stockholm is their main or the original gallery. And they have offices around the world, or not offices, but other galleries. Like, for example, there's a recent one opened in New York, which I think is a huge success there. So what is important here to know about this gallery, that they actually support photographers of a slightly younger generation, as opposed to many other photography galleries who often focus on the heritage of photography when you already have an established name, and the sprints are very rare and things like that. But this photography actually discovers names and introduces you to work of photographers around the world, and there's a lot of experimental photography included, and really different ages, different generations of photographers. Some of them are quite established, some of them are not that famous yet, but still already quite successful. And what's also interesting here, that you can read interviews and read backstories of all these photographers. Like this Arvida, for example, she's very young and just recently became extremely popular. And then you can read how they approach their work, what inspires them, which I love reading interviews and see how what's behind people's arts, what's behind their thoughts and their ideas. And it's also a really good overview what's happening in the photography world. And because these photographers are also from completely different countries and completely different parts of the world, and it's different points of view, different voices. And there's also some video artists, which I think is also really important to kind of keep an eye on them, because there's the lines are blurring more and more between photography and video arts. And there's a lot of experiments on both ends, videographers doing stills and photographers shooting videos. So it's definitely these two genres are emerging. So yeah, really inspiring, really keeps you up to date what's happening in the fine art photography world. And maybe you'll discover some new names. Some of them you will know, like Bettina Rhymes, for example. But there will be definitely a lot of new and fresh ones. And if you have an opportunity to actually go and check it out in person, definitely go see their museum section. And yeah, keep in touch, keep checking them out, and hopefully that gets you inspired. And thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and if you would like to support me, please also subscribe to my channel on Patreon. Thank you.